It's a pleasure to have you here on Kardec Radio with us for another study of the Medium's book. Today I'm Munir Gariba, and I'll be your host, and I'll take you through chapter 1, part 2 of the Medium's book. And it's a very interesting chapter about the action of spirits upon matter. This is a very interesting topic because it gives us an idea how the two worlds that seem to be so far apart can actually get together and interact. So the manifestation of the soul. The intelligent beings who, to some extent, they live amongst us, although they are of an invisible nature. And the question is, couldn't they somehow make their presence felt here in the physical world? So we see the two worlds as being distinct, but of course there is interaction between them. And as humanity progresses, because this is not new, if we look at all different cultures throughout our history as humanity, we will see that the interaction with the dead, as it was called, the interaction with this different dimension has always happened. The problem is for us, it's difficult to explain how it happened. So it got to the realm of superstition, a realm where our sciences of today cannot explain so far. But it is there. The phenomena have been reported throughout our history. And like, for instance, for primitive people, lightning, until we understood that phenomenon, we attributed it to gods. That was a god that was manifesting itself to us, showing that they were happy, they were angry, or whatever, until the day that we developed ourselves in terms of intelligence to the point that we could find the explanation for that. And what we lack so far is the explanation for this action of spirits in the physical world. Well, we lacked. We started to receive from the spiritual world the initial information through which we could begin to understand how it takes place. And why has it taken so long? Because it's not a simple phenomenon per se. We need a vast knowledge, a baggage in terms of intellectual development and knowledge to be able to understand. So we had to get to this point where now we begin to find the explanation for those phenomena. Until then, we started just to scratch the surface without deep knowledge, without the intellectual element that would allow us to perceive their presence, to understand their interaction. We see that what is easy, we learn first. And then what is more difficult, that requires a period of preparation, of acquisition in terms of knowledge, it can be explained much further down the line until we are mature enough to understand that. So, yes, the answer is yes, we can do that. So, this belief has the acceptance of so many different cultures, as I said before, in all ages. So if it has survived and it is widespread, wherever we go, we hear similar stories, people actually telling us about the same phenomena that, has taken place in the past and is taking place today, still taking place. So it is something that we can't ignore. Although with our science, and we've seen in the previous 4 chapters of the Medium's book, from chapter 1 to chapter 4, which are part 1, we could understand that as we grew intellectually, we started to become materialistic in the sense that the explanation we had for the things we know or knew in material terms made us skeptics regarding the things we couldn't explain. And that's why we see, the materialistic view of the world beginning to take place in the 19th through the 20th and until today. But we are beginning to explain the physical world. And as I said before, the complexity of the spiritual world is so great that we need to go through this for yet a much longer time in order to discover what is necessary, to understand what is important, and then to be able to explain in detail. But as I said before, the spirits, through different mediums in different places, they brought this information for us, and Kardec compiled this information through reasoning and presented this information in the medium's book. So, as said before, it took the skepticism and materialism of our century to relegate this, which was a common perception, to the realm of superstition. And until today, some people are very adamant that, these stories about ghosts, about the dead coming back, and so on, they're just, fiction. They're just in the imaginary of people, and they are not real. Because with the science that we have today, we can't explain them. And because we can't explain them, we deny them. And the cause of this ignorance concerning the nature of spirits and of the means through which they are able to manifest themselves made people more, as I said, skeptic about this manifestation. So such a phenomenon, the spirit manifestation, it cannot occur without the action of spirit upon matter. And the question is, the perception that we have of a spirit, the understanding that we have about a spirit, is it correct? Is a spirit totally deprived of any material element, although in a different state, that would allow these spirits to interact with the dense matter that we have in the physical world? Spirit is not an abstraction. On the contrary, it's defined, it's limited, it's a circumscribed being. Even without my body, I will perceive myself as I am today. I may look slightly younger or older, slightly different, but I'll be me, the way I am, the way I understand that I am. Because sometimes we grow old, but if we don't look into the mirror very often, we have a perception of us, even physical perception, that we are of a certain age, normally much younger. And, we don't see time passing by and the work of this time passing by in our physical body. So for the spirit is the same. So we have a physical body and we have our soul. Kardec is very clear. He calls spirit our essence, the spark, the element, the intellectual element where our intelligence resides, where our memory resides, where our values reside. And he calls this spirit, when in a physical body incarnated, he calls a soul. So me, right now, I can say my spirit. The correct way to say, according to Kardec, is my soul. The day I die, I can say that my soul now, I can call it a spirit. So spirit, while incarnated, is called a soul. And we have the human form. The spirits are adamant about that. We don't lose our form. We don't become just a blob of something that has no shape, that is made of something we don't understand. No. We carry on having the same form, to a certain extent, exactly the same, with the small variations that we'll get to understand. So just after that, when we die, immediately after, or when the process of death starts, we detach ourselves from the body. What is that? I detach myself from the body. The body is not me. I am, right now, the soul in a body. And when I die, I become a spirit without a body. But there is this element that links the two together. So we find ourselves in a state of confusion. Everything seems to be unclear. This is a natural process. Because while we are in a physical body, we have binding elements, as if they were invisible glue, invisible energy that binds us together, like a magnetic field. We don't see the magnetic field, but we feel the force of this magnetic field. And it is necessary to keep our soul in our physical body until the moment of death. But this field around us, it doesn't disappear completely all of a sudden. It takes some time to actually to disappear. So that's why we find ourselves in a state of confusion. Everything seems to be unclear. We see that we are a whole. We are who we are. And we see our body and realize that there is two of us, one alive and one that is lying dead. So how come I feel myself alive? I look at me, I'm the same. If I don't have my arm, I look at me and my arm is not there. And I look at the body, a corpse that is lying there, lifeless, and looks exactly like me. But I feel alive. I'm the one alive. So it's natural, this state of confusion. So it's natural that we can't understand how it happened, the separation. And in this case, I see that I'm living and I see a body, as if I could see myself in color and see a body exactly like me, a copy of me, still and in black and white, lifeless. So it's difficult for understand for some of us if we don't have spiritual preparation. So when this state of confusion dissipates, and it takes a shorter time or a longer time, it depends on us, on our condition, on how we were, our inner state when we died. So after this confusion goes, we have the impression that our body is like an old worn-out clothing, a heavy one, a one that was very tight, limiting our senses that are so many in the spirit and that are reduced to 5 when we are in a physical body, at least when we are in awake states. Sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. So this is our interaction with the physical world, but the spirit has many more senses. And these heavy clothing prevented us from using, most of us. Some still can, get a bit loose and experience more than just the 5 senses, but in an excited state, not normally. So the spirit then feels lighter, relieved of a burden, as if we were carrying a heavy load, and all of a sudden we find ourselves free of this heavy load, and then we feel so light. It's light, we feel so light that we believe we can even fly. And yes, we can. We can rise, we can move about, we can go anywhere in space, in principle. Of course, there are always limitations to that. But yes, it is possible for us at some point, if not immediately, to rise and to move around in space, floating freely. So I realize I myself, it's the same me, with my memory, with my experience. Perhaps now my perceptions is it's broader than before, but it is me. And we notice that we have retained our personality, and we are conscious of ourself and our individuality. So we realize that the individuality is not in the body. The individuality goes with the spirit. And that's why I say the spirit is the essence where all our attributes are. So what are we to conclude from all this so far? That the soul does not leave everything behind in the grave, but takes something along with it instead. So I have a body in the spirit world, very similar, if not identical, to the physical one, the one I just left. But now with some other properties, but it is still a body. We will see that this body is made out of a matter that is not as dense as the one that we have in the physical world, as if we had a broader periodic table where the elements were not just the ones that we see here, but many more, much lighter, where their combination make these a body that we have, which is very similar to our physical body. So the soul or spirit, if is not with the body any longer, and the spirit, the intelligent principle in which our moral sense resides, the body is just a material and dense envelope, which the spirit temporarily uses it as a garment for our experience. It is an experience that we need to develop our virtues. So it is important for us that we take up a body, we go through a lifespan and go through the experiences that are necessary. But we also have an element that stays in between the spirit and the physical body, the one that makes possible not only our interaction with the physical body, and of course taking the sensations from the physical body to our spirit, but also keep our form, keep ourselves contained, keep ourselves who we are. And this perispirit, this name was given by Kardec, it is fluidic. It's made of a kind of matter, we say a semi-material envelope, which serves as the link between the soul and the body. And we will find in this perispirit the elements that will make or help us understand how is it possible for a spirit to interact with the physical world. So basically in this picture here, we have our essence, which is spiritual, is not material, is made out of the intellectual element of the creation, where our essence is, our memory is, all our experiences are. It is like a spark. For the lack of words, for the lack of understanding, we just imagine it as a spark whose color and brightness represents how advanced we are in intellectual and moral development. We have here on the right our physical body, which is made out of the elements that are provided by the physical world, the one we find in our periodic table. And in between, we have the perispirits, made out, as I said before, of these kind of semi-matter, or a type of matter that is more fluidic. And when we have the three together, we have a soul and the body in the physical world. When we lose the physical body, and this picture gives us an idea, so death is the destruction, or actually the disaggregation, for so many reasons, that our medical field understands today. We basically have our body disaggregated, and then we have this dense envelope, abandon the dense envelope, and what we have here is just the spirit with the perispirit. So the perispirit, it is fluidic, ethereal, vaporous, invisible to us, because it's a type of matter that is in, we could say, a kind of dimension that cannot be perceived by our senses, and at this point cannot be perceived by our instruments, but certainly one day it will be. In its normal state, it is important to say. So it is this envelope, it is material, despite the fact that it's not made of this matter that we know in the physical world, but a different type of matter, but yet it is matter. So the perispirit, it exists with us, it's here with me. I'm a spirit with the perispirit in the physical body. You people now can see my physical body, the outside of it at least, but you cannot see my perispirit. And, it's even less possible to see my spirit at this point. You see the manifestation of my spirit. And it is possible because through my perispirit, I act on my nerve cells in my brain and talk to you. Through the senses, you can hear me, you can see me. If I'm close to you, you can touch me. But you cannot see the perispirit, and as I said before, the spirit as well. So it is the intermediary through which, the sensations perceived by the spirit, the sensations that we get from our body, it goes through our perispirit to our spirits, and the spirit transmits its will to the outside world, physical world here, and acts upon the physical body and the organs through the perispirit. So it is, an element that is there in the middle, an intermediary between the spirit and the physical body. So the existence of the perispirit was not only revealed by spirits, but has been confirmed by observation. We have the opportunity to see this, even in this study, not today, but in the study of the medium's book, cases of materialization, where a spirit renders itself visible to anyone in material terms. And it's very interesting. This is a type of a phenomenon that has been taking place for many I would say centuries, or since humanity existed. So whether during its union with the body or after its separation, so the soul is never separated from its perispirit. The spirit, the essence, the spark is always clothed by a perispirit. So what changes as we evolve as a spirit is the density of this perispirit. We become even more transparent, I would say. It becomes our perispirit. It gets a degree of transparency that to pure spirits, it looks as if they lost their perispirit, but it's still there in such a state that is basically invisible even for the spirits, but still there is a perispirit. That's why it's said that never separated from its perispirit, our soul. And the spirit, the intellectual and moral principle, that spark, is always clothed with the perispirit, whose nature becomes more and more etherealized, as I said before, and purifies and raises itself in the spirit hierarchy. We will find more information about that in the spirits book. The spirits book, we see the hierarchy of spirits, and then we understand this process. So when we are not evolved spirits, we are at the beginning of our process of evolution. Our perispirit is very dense, not as dense as the physical body, but still very dense. So as the spirit becomes full of virtues, the perispirit around it becomes more rarefied, becomes more etherealized. The form of the perispirit is the human form. And when it appears to us, it is usually in the same form by which we knew the spirit during its physical life. And that's why it's so common to see people we knew, very much as we knew them. So except for some differences in details, we get to learn about that. And the organic modifications that are required for the environment which the being must live, the human form is the same for all inhabitants on all globes, at least according to the spirits. And it is also the form of the discarnate spirits who only possess the perispirit. So the human form, it varies according to the condition of the environment where that spirit finds itself, but is not completely different of the human form. And here talking about not only on this planet, in the physical domain and the spiritual world, but also in every globe where we find spirits inhabiting. So the perispirit's subtle matter is not as persistent and inflexible as the body, the physical body. In reality, it's more flexible, more malleable. For my body to change, it takes some time. For my perispirit to change, it requires that I concentrate on this new form, on this change. And if I know how to operate, to do that, I can change. So it is flexible, it is expandable. And that's why, it assumes a form of the body, not exactly the same, not absolute, but a form of the body. So it's molded according to the will of the spirit, who can give it appearances it wants to, whereas the physical envelope confronts it with invincible resistance. So the physical body is basically very hard material, difficult to change easily. It may change over a long period of time through tremendous effort, but not the perispirit. The perispirit is much more flexible. So the perispirit expands, contracts, transforms itself. It lends itself to all sorts of metamorphoses according to the will that acts upon it. But not everyone can do that immediately. So we have actually to develop this in the same way that I have muscles and I have a physical body. But for me to become an athlete, if I have to do a lot of work on my muscles, on my body, to actually get ready for that. So although in principle everyone can be an athlete, if I don't submit myself to that process of becoming one, I'll never get there. It's the same regarding this control of the perispirit. So it is thanks to the property of the fluidic envelope that the spirit can make itself recognizable when necessary, by taking an exact appearance that it had during its physical life, and even display the very same physical defects that could serve as a sign for recognizing it. So you people know me because, I'm blind of one eye, and, I may present myself when I die to you in order for you to recognize me without an eye, but not necessarily. It's just, a change that we make, possible for people to identify me more easily. And although fluidic, the perispirit is nevertheless comprised of the same type of matter that makes tangible apparitions possible. So, tangible apparitions, the perispirit is enveloped in a fluid that some people have some mediums. We call them mediums of materialization. They provide this dense fluid very close to the physical body, and that fluid will basically dress the perispirit of that spirit, rendering the spirit visible to anyone, not just to mediums. So we can feel the warmth. It becomes tangible. We can feel the resistance of a solid object, and obviously the ability to hold on to onlookers. Everyone looking at that will see a spirit materialized. So, and all of a sudden that spirit may just vanish. And the essence of the spirit is not the thinking being. It's not entirely known to us. Actually, we are beginning to understand thanks to the spirit. So it only reveals itself through its actions, and these actions can only impress our senses by means of an intermediary. And it has to be a type of matter, this intermediary, composed of a certain type of matter to be able to act upon the physical world, dense matter. That's what we know, we get to know. As I said before, you can hear my voice. So my voice is coming from my body, but the information, the ideas and everything are coming from my spirit. But exactly how my spirit is, if it's bright or not bright, you won't know. You will guess perhaps by the things that I do, by what I say, but intimately. Only me, and perhaps not even me, will know exactly who I am in terms of spirit. So the spirit needs matter to act upon matter. Less dense matter to act upon very dense matter. And this instrument is, this intermediary is the perispirit. So a final consideration. So one may perhaps ask how a spirit, with the aid of such subtle matter that composes the perispirit, is able to act upon heavy and compact objects, to lift tables, etc. That was the question that Kardec asked himself when he wasn't called Kardec in those days. He was Mr. Revile. So that was a question he posed to himself when he saw heavy tables turning in the air, moving without anyone responsible for that in principle. None of the present there were, lifting that. So, is there anything so strange in accepting the fact that the spirit, by employing its perispirit, can lift a table, especially when it is understood that this perispirit can make itself visible, tangible, and behave like a solid object? That was actually the answer to that with another question. If the spirit can materialize itself, if the spirit can be felt by touch when materialized, why would it be impossible for the spirit to move another object using the same property of the perispirits? So, I hope I gave you an overview of this chapter. So I'll invite you all to study this chapter. It's very interesting. It's just the first chapter, the introduction to this part 2. And it is very, very interesting because it gives us an idea how it is possible. And now we find an explanation in apparitions. In other religions, we have saints. We have so many different forms of manifestation of spirits. And people put them in category of miracles, of supernatural, and so on. But with this, and starting with this chapter, we have an opportunity to begin to understand and explain how it is possible. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you have enjoyed. Bye-bye for now.